First of all, thank you for coming. You guys are stepping off into the deep end with this stuff, and a lot of it is not pretty. Actually, the vast majority of it is really, really quite ugly. But you guys make a huge difference, and even just today I was talking with a victim about advocacy and safety planning, and you guys do really help people out, so thank you. You're what makes this community awesome. So with that said, what we do is very different from what you all do. You all are advocates, and you're there to have that person's back no matter what. If a person comes to you and calls you up on the hotline and says, I'm a victim, this is what happened, your job is to say, you're right, how can I help you? And to have that person's back. And we are here to help people as well. However, we aren't that person that necessarily gets to give them a hug and tell them that they're a victim and that we're going to make everything all right for them, because we have to stay objective, and in the middle, we are gatherers of facts primarily. And we take those facts and give them to Carrie. And that means that we have to talk with both sides of an incident and remain neutral, because quite frequently when we get a call, it'll start out as a person calling and claiming to be a victim. And it might even be one of our clients. But through our investigation, what we might find is that that person is a victim, but is also the suspect or the aggressor sometimes. So I don't know how many times it happens that we get a call from somebody, 911, and then end up arresting the person who called 911, because what the facts lead us to believe is that that person instigated whatever incident happened. And Colorado is probably, you guys have read your statutes on domestic violence? The Colorado statutes?
Don't quiz us.
I'm not quizzing. And if you guys have questions,
just keep
please feel free to ask.
Go over all
But yeah, right, from memory.
Just recite the
I
statute.
carry little books with me in my car so I can look stuff up, because I am forgetful. I'm old. But so, Colorado is a mandatory arrest state. If, for domestic violence, I think you guys probably understand at this point, if two people have been in an intimate relationship, that could be, it doesn't have to mean intercourse or sex, it could be kissing, as light as that, because sometimes it happens for high school and they haven't quite gone that far, or junior high or whatever. But if they've been in an intimate relationship, as that definition is explained in the statutes, and then a crime is committed from one person to the other, no matter how slight that crime, it could be, my boyfriend Rick and I get into a fight and I take the phone away from him when he's trying to call his mom for support. Well, that's domestic violence. That would be interruption of a phone service or a telephone service, which is a crime. It could be, my girlfriend Christy and I are get into a fight, and I'm just a rude son of a bitch, and pissed her off verbally, and she takes something that's shared by the two of us, a picture of us, and throws it against the wall near me, out of frustration with me. She just committed criminal mischief and potentially harassment or menacing by throwing it so close to me. She's the one that's getting arrested.
So 100% of the time when you guys go, someone is...
No, there has to be a crime committed. And what gets called in a lot as domestics is father-son, mother-daughter, any combination thereof, because it's in the domicile. People think of that as domestic and some old terminology. That gets called in as a domestic. That's not, unless there's an intimate relationship, which certainly hope not in that situation.
And we need probable cause, because
Yes.
you call and say, she did this to me, and she says, no, he did that to me. If nobody saw anything, if there's no marks, there's no evidence, we need evidence of, we need
Okay.
probable
Have to
cause.
see it.
We need
I'm not gonna
to
just take your word for it and throw somebody in jail.
But anyway, so did I just muddy the waters? Everything clear as mud on that?
You can also get there to muddy the waters and it is nobody called and nobody did anything and nobody did anything wrong
There's a
yet.
neighbor that called.
Yeah, or, God knows what, there's a big gash in the wall, or something, I don't know, she's got marks on her, but nothing happened, or he's got marks. I mean, it can be a whole combination of.
And we'll show up all the time, like, nope, nothing happened. Both
Well,
parties,
and
nothing
this is
happened.
the other part,
But
the
obviously
weird-
it is, yeah.
We're going, just so that you guys know, and it'll freak some people out, we're gonna show up in force when it gets called in as a domestic, especially in progress. There's more or less two different types of calls, an in progress call or a cold call. Cold call means it happened earlier. It could have been a week ago and it would be cold. It could have happened an hour ago. We would usually call that cold, although it never fits within, what's that, pursuit?
Fresh pursuit.
Yeah, fresh pursuit. So a domestic violence call is the most typical call for law enforcement. So anyway, we show up in force because domestic violence calls are the most typical call where a law enforcement officer gets injured or killed. They are hands down, statistically, the most dangerous calls that law enforcement goes on.
And
Any
it's
thoughts
not
as to
always
why?
a suspect.
Oh yeah, it can be, well, but any thoughts as to why? Anyone?
Emotions are really high.
Extremely high.
Drugs or alcohol.
Generally speaking, most domestic violence calls that I've been on, the vast majority, and I'd wager 98.9%. There's
Something right in there.
There's alcohol or drugs involved. Wow. Where are we going?
You're taking
Uh-huh.
a person they love and
Okay.
doing something bad.
You're
We're
affecting
going
their family
into
now.
their home, which unless it's a frequent flyer, which is somebody we contact a lot, that place is unknown to us. Okay, they know that residence intimately. We don't. Another statistic for Colorado is something like 65% of residences in Colorado have firearms. There's a lot of firearms in the state. Every home has weapons. This room, aside from what we have on our belts, has all sorts of weapons. I could significantly injure anybody here with one of these water bottles, especially if it has water in it. So there's weapons everywhere in the house. And so, we go into these things and we go in pairs so that we can manage at least two parties and separate them. That's the first thing that we're going to, first thing we're going to do is get on scene and try to see what we can stop, look, listen, smell, see what's going on, try and get our bearings about us, and come up with a plan. Hopefully on the way to the call, if we know who the two parties are, have information on them, we'll try and run them through our dispatch center and FBI, CCIC, NCIC, all these information centers that we can gather information on these people. We can find out if they're violent offenders previously, what other stuff they've been involved with, give us an idea of what might be happening. A lot of times we already know who they are. But then we will get there and we'll try and separate the two people if they are not already separated. The 911 dispatcher will try and do that. Whoever the person seems to be that's calling is somewhat presumed to be the victim to begin with. Sometimes we'll get, like just earlier this week, we got both people calling at the same time, calling 911. So then we get them separated, and they'll try and get them to a safe place, whether it's lock themselves in a bathroom or go over to a friend's house, something like that. If they've been in contact with you guys already, which happens quite frequently, a lot of times people are more comfortable going to the resource center and talking to you guys than they are talking to us. Why?
Because everything we hear is confidential.
Yes. And what
I feel
happens?
safer.
Who wants to talk to the cops?
So, question, if someone calls 911 from the town of Telluride, does the marshals and the sheriffs respond, or just the marshals?
Andy.
Well,
Okay, both, if, like, for instance, tonight's a perfect example, we had a scheduling issue where we had nobody, now there's two of us. If one guy, if I end up working by myself,
Last night,
and I get a serious domestic, and Whitey just happens to be out on the spur, he's kind of.
Chris helped me with just about every call I had last night. So,
And
he
so-
really did, and he was there, I didn't even have to ask him. I'd pull up and he's already waiting.
And we'll show up frequently out Tiger Creek.
why don't you work for just about every agency in the county? Why don't you explain, do you guys know all the different agencies in the county?
We have 3 different jurisdictions, Mountain Village, well, 4, I guess you count state patrol.
No. But you go.
Norwood, you're talking Norwood. Mountain Village, Telluride, San Miguel. San Miguel covers everything. Norwood has their own, and then State Patrol runs through, so you probably see technically 5.
5, well, that's 5 different state or local, what we would call local law enforcement agencies. Plus, there's federal law enforcement around here too.
Okay.
But they don't get involved in domestics too often.
And we all back each other. So you may see a Mountain Village officer come down.
You might see me in Norwood at 3 a.m. if the search.
If something was serious enough, like Scott last night at 3 a.m., he had something. And I said, do you want me to come back to you in Placerville? I'm the next, I'm the only other person on. When everybody else goes off, I may be the last person on in the county. So if they have to call and wake somebody up for Brown Homestead, which is county, I'm gonna go first. And then hopefully Chris wakes up or somebody else wakes up and comes out there. But you could,
Approximately 2 minutes, 30 seconds to get my gear on.
you could see any one of the 3 of us out there. And depending on
If I
staffing
took the
levels
light
and seriousness of the call. Majority of the time anymore, it used to be people would go out by themselves. We are really trying to get away from that on everything. So that you have at least 2 people going for safety.
Our policy
Our
at the
safety.
sheriff's office is 2 officers go.
Minimum. So, like I said last night, Chris helped me on everything because of staffing stuff. He would have been helping right time, but I had to tweak it.
Yeah, we both showed up.
We both showed up. So, yeah, you could see anybody show up for that. I've gone to something and had a county plain clothes show up to back me. They're off, but
Well, if
They could see
it's a
something happen.
dangerous hot call, I'm probably just throwing on pants,
fuzzy
some of my
slippers.
tools, and a vest, and running out the door. Like that. I mean, like, I've got my vest set up so I can just go quick. It's got a little insignia on it. Okay, they know who I am. Hopefully, I'm not getting shot by the good guys. It can be very serious, and it can, emotions are usually pretty high. And, yeah. So, okay, what were we talking about before?
I know. I just wanted to share a story that was kind of strange. Does anybody know who Tom is? Tom Hopper? Everybody know who he is? Okay. Well, one night, him and I and Chris, I couldn't get there quick enough. We had a domestic. And Tom actually responded to where the suspect was, which was in a parking lot. And this is just to kind of show you, you may get a call or we may get a call, and things aren't always what it seems when you get the call or we get the call. Tom went to the parking lot to deal with the suspect. Chris showed up first to deal with the victim, and then I came. And the room was completely trashed. It was at a hotel, completely trashed. Blood everywhere. He looks like he's been beat to a flippin' pulp.
So did she.
But Tom didn't know that. And the room was awful, and awful. I mean, awful. Stuff broken everywhere. Like I said, blood, glass everywhere. And I think you had left at that point.
No.
Tom comes back with the suspect and says, we're gonna have to take him, look at her, she's got a fat lip, she, you know, says whatever, we're gonna have to take her, and I said, wait.
And the suspect at this point was, he was thinking was the victim. He didn't get the
Yes.
whole.
Because the
He
guy.
didn't
was
get the
really
whole
beat up.
story. I said, Tom, no, I need you to go into that room first, because he was adamant. He wanted to go take him down because of everything she said. I said, no, I really need you to go into that room. I'll stay out here with her, you go into that room. He goes into the room for probably 60 seconds and comes back out and goes, you're right, she's going. So you never know. I mean, it just kind of shows very strange situation or whatever. You may get a call or dispatch or somebody. It's not always what it seems until we get there. And even we may not know what it seems.
I've been on, again, with the mandatory arrest law, we can get in trouble if we don't arrest somebody when they should have been arrested. And I don't know if Carrie touched on this when she was in here. In general, the state, the prosecution, does not like a dual arrest. I mean, a lot of times we get mutual combatants. And we're supposed to figure out who started the fight. Without a third-party witness, do you know how impossible that is? I mean, have you ever been in an argument with somebody? It doesn't have to be an intimate relationship.
Or any mom.
Right. If you've got kids, who started the fight? It's next
He
to
did.
impossible
He
to
did.
figure it out.
It's,
And sometimes,
Primary aggressor is the term.
Yeah.
Who was driving?
who started it? That's, and sometimes we arrest both people because it's like multiple different, sometimes I've had domestics that were spread out over like, once you get into it, like 36 hours. And it started with something, and then it went to this, and then it went to that, and it's like as you keep peeling back the layers, you start, sorting it out, and eventually get to something that's far enough off that's like, well, I think we can discount that one and go with something else. But it's difficult. Anyway, we don't want to arrest people if we can help it. It makes the prosecution a lot more difficult, and generally speaking, there is going to be somebody who is the primary aggressor. So that's another point that we have to deal with that you guys, you may or may not see. The person might be coming to you and might be so fed up that they end up doing something, and then they get your client gets arrested. And that might be, I would suspect that would be really frustrating when you've been working with somebody and you believe them to be a victim from what you've heard, and then all of a sudden they get arrested. But just know that we're not trying to be, we're trying to be as fair as we can on stuff. There's just a very big gap and difference between what you all do and what we have to do.
I had an example a little over a month ago probably. Person had been talking to you guys, I don't remember who she was talking to. I think you guys were actually RP on it. I go over, talk to her, talk to him, talk to them both. Another, I'm by myself that night, so it's, anyway, long story short, I get down to where I'm thinking about taking her with me now, and you guys, I think you guys had actually called for her because she called it. Long term, she probably was the victim. He was an asshole, did this. Last week, 3 days ago, 2 days ago. But tonight, when I show up, I'm going to worry about what went on tonight when I show up.
And that's what we try to focus on.
Okay, I finally got fed up and I gave him a shove. Okay, now you have to go with me. You've been putting up with it, you've been the victim. But all of a sudden tonight, you have to come with me.
And
So our customers get frustrated with that kind of
yes,
stuff.
and I totally empathize and understand where somebody's coming from. They get to their wits' end and they just feel like they need to make that disconnect and they give somebody a shove to get out of there. But I just arrested a guy earlier this week. That much of a shove. I mean, probably not even that much. I don't know. I wasn't there.
Follow the law.
And
not-
that is harassment, push-up kick.
Can you explain the difference between a push and a shove?
Can you demonstrate, actually?
I think it reads stretch of
There's a definitions version. How-
18911.
Yeah, how are you guys with, I know you were just talking about protection orders, no contact orders. Any questions on that stuff?
We were just having a heated debate in there about, a situation and the way no contact orders read now. So, not a
You
heated
guys-
debate, that's how we work through our cases, is talking with each other and we talk over each other.
There's a padded room and they wrestle.
But on no contact orders, or what no contact orders used to be, what they are now, what they can and can't do. And we have to follow it.
So, let's just kind of go through a scenario. There's a victim and there's a suspect, and you arrest the suspect. It's a man and a wife, and they got in a heated argument, and he pushed her or whatever. You guys come, you take him to jail, arrest him. Next day, what's the normal procedure? He gets out of jail and goes back home?
Well, it just depends. Give me a day of the week that he got arrested.
Right, so he has to wait until he goes to see a judge.
So an arrest on a domestic violence, if it's domestic violence, it's a no bond hold. You guys understand what bonds are? If I get pulled over for driving under revocation, I lost my driver's license because